Okay, well. Jeez.
Yake xatinil te kat you ha. Tesha ushkek. Joey shukwaya achtuasagu. Iwakshi kayas. Yikakwati yata. Ya hash atk yukatangi. Tachanach yake. Sheet kakre wutin. Kagwantan. Ach ish has I can cheese.
Jeez.
Ya. Gwas. Dagunjin card ka TikTok shuwahichen aya atlein kuus kanachas with the art. Wasa at kakwane konachawe at that you has two at ya ha you katangi ha kusti. Agawe atlein ku wujin you has katla at we at atunach you katli at atunach you khudutli atki you khadutli atki at tunach awe. Dachnach eqa atlein you katang awe has outlayach. Kall at ka kitchnach. Awe ya asai kud like a she awe kudziti. So he de shugach tutana. A joy yawaka. Guksa. Do you katangi? A joy to he de shugach tutan. He ya yakusket de kate. Hajikanakas cow de kid. Hakakas kahashil kohas. Ye awe kitchnach yukatangi. Kall at koa. Ya do a. Itlagdach had the ch'án, hakina keu to sanuk. Katulitsin. Sukushtayach da saya tushigéiyi at dujidayat katutiyin had the ch'án xatiyacha. So we're not greedy people. We are generous. Generous is tesh ushqayq. Greedy is shaqayq. And so this was there was a question asked right before we started, which was about this. So in this case, you have ya tushigéiyi at, which is something we don't want to share. So thinking of like these words in particular, we're going to use these to launch off and look up this verb. Ch'takdach, since forever. Hadachchan, our grandchildren. Hakina keu sanuk. We lift them above ourselves. Yes. Chatishitsin. We cherish it. Them. Tsukushteyach dasa yatushigéiyi at. Also, it doesn't matter what it is that we don't want to share. Dujideyat chatutiyin. We always gave it to them. Hadachan chsatiyacha. The ones who are our grandchildren.
Yeah, well.
So this is yashige. So we look it up and it's under refuse. And so there are some times, so like there's this one verb root, gay, which is big or plentiful. It can be used to talk about small in some cases, but it's almost always big, and sometimes it's plentiful. Like you could say, you name all your clan houses. You say, yesh hit, yesh kidji hit, yesh kuti hit, kushte hit, shah hit, qaisan hit, dechawushi hit, yewe ye kuge ha hiti, ha hitki, yewe ye kuge ha hitki. If you're wrapping up a speech, you could also say, yewe ye kuge ha hitangi. That's how big my speech is. It's a nice way of closing. Then you have this other gay, which is, there's one with intelligence. So intelligent, foolish, it was opposite. And then to understand something, like achdaya kushusake, right? And then kesachdaya kushuske, I don't understand. I would probably venture to guess this is a different one, maybe a third. And so as sort of like, we do this work to go through and harvest out some verbs through all of these sources. Sometimes we're doing exactly what Ka Sang was talking about, which is you're reading some of the speeches and the stories, then you find a word and you're like, what's this word? And so as you go in and look it up, sometimes you could find it, and then with this text, you can sort of say, well, let's go look up refuse, see what it shows us. So that maybe we can learn how to use this verb. And so we go up here and we see refuse, to give or lend, keep for oneself, value for oneself, hold on to one's possessions. Ya shigéiyi.
Hmm.
Dana ya aushigéiyi. They refuse to give or lend any money. Shigéiyi. Ka. Ch'án ya utshigéiyi. A stingy person always refuses to give anything. So there's shigéiyi. Shigéiyi is greedy. So you can, what they did is you put the I in the end, you put this suffix on the end of especially state verbs, works really well for state verbs. And then it becomes an adjective. Yak'e, yak'e shigéiyi, shigéiyi, right? And in this case, ka means a person. Shigéiyi ka, a greedy person. Ch'án, all the time, forever, always. Ya atshigéiyi. So this tells you it likes to have ya in front of it. This ya and this gay makes me think, okay, this is probably that same root. Because this is a ya that kind of means intellect. And that's why you have it in achday, kesh achday ya kushiske. You have that ya in there. And there's a few other verbs that have this ya that pops. It's different than some of the other ones that we've seen. It's not the most common thing, but you could say, I'll try and scrape up some examples of that one. But then, like, so this gives us a couple of examples. There's a major clue in this one, as far as like, we've gone over this a few times. Like this dictionary has like tons of great stuff, but it doesn't tell us everything we need to know about this verb. But then sometimes it does. But we got to bust out our what do we got to look through our we got to look through our hellebore glasses. So what does this tell us right there?
That classifier, SH, is like negative.
Yeah, it's got an SH classifier, which sometimes associated with negative things. What mode is this one in?
Possible.
What mode?
You mean like, is it an
Oh,
event or something?
perfective.
Verb type. Yeah, it's a perfective verb.
That
So
mean
oh, go ahead.
it's zero conjugation because
Which-
it's long and high?
Yep. So if it's open and perfective, long and high means zero. Everything else means not zero. You can only tell you one that you could say, well, it either is or it isn't, right? And so we can sort of take there is a chance, because we've got another example here that's an imperfective, there is a chance that it's always long and high. And so we can go a little further by getting into the verb notes. We're going to go to the G, GE, and look at that. It has it listed as a separate root for stingy. And so then you got G question mark, because it is probably a state verb. But I don't know if it's a state verb. I don't think it is. And why would I think it's not a state verb? Why would I think that?
That plus I.
Well, plus like a state verb actually, maybe it is. So like this looks like an imperfective. So if it's imperfective and plus I, then it's got to be a state verb, right? But then okay, so maybe it is a state verb, but it does something that other state verbs, most of them, what's one of the things that state verbs usually have that's a little bit different than in English? The literal.
They only have imperfective.
Well, you have an imperfective, but I think this comes back to the pronoun.
Object pronoun?
You use an object pronoun, right? So you would say ch'án. You don't say ch'án, right? So just like if you said that in English, you would technically say me good, just like in the movies, right?
Mhm.
So if we go back to now we go back to this one, tushigéiyi. That's not hashigéiyi. So this tells you that so if you say, okay, well, here's tu, so there's a subject in there, and the subject is the one who doesn't want to share it, then we can go back to either example here. Well, there's but there's aushigéiyi. So there's also an object. Object, subject, sh classifier, gay. We don't know about the stem variation because we haven't seen, we'll need to see a negative. Well, I guess, yeah, we'll need to see a negative. But we can, that's what we can see so far, right, is that. And then, oh, gonna cheese, yeah. So in the chat room came another idea, which I've been behind on this. We do have a separate Zoom link that's dedicated for language study. And so that Zoom link I can drop in the chat. And then we also have, hold on, let me find it. Oh, here it is. So you can set up study times, conversation times. I think it will be very helpful because when you study advanced Tlingit, you're doing stuff that really only a tiny handful of people in the entire world are doing and have done, right? So it does narrow down quite a bit. So I think you've got to have people to talk to about this stuff because if you just try and think about it on your own, it just makes a lot of sense because then you could just keep guessing and keep, like we're doing right now, right? We're figuring stuff out. I'm like, oh, is it this? No, it's not that because look at that. Oh, wait, look at that. Then it must be. So you start to put these pieces together, and the more you do this stuff, I think the more you tend to recognize what kinds of things you're looking at. And then I guess it's fine. The base camp has gone cold. I let all the fires go out of the base camp. You kept the fires going. But what I'll do is I'll share a link to this as well. So a Google Doc is certainly a great way to share everybody's information. But we also have this thing called Basecamp, which is, how do I invite people? Okay, I'll try and figure it out while something else is going on. But basically, Basecamp is software that we were able to pick up for free because we're an educational institution. And it's like a team communication thing. So you can chat within it, you can have a message board. And the vision that I had based on a friend of mine who is studying Tlingit, who uses this in their work, was like, hey, here's a way we can stay in touch with each other. So if you had a question, you could ask it here and the whole group can see it. And if you want to set up study groups, then you can sort of put a message up on this board and a bunch of people can see it. So as it stands, we have, oh, look, I found the link. So here's the link to that. So the link to that's in the chat now. And this is for an advanced working group. And so we can also figure out whether we want to do like a whole group, because there are, I think, about 150 people studying Tlingit right now through UAS. So it's really awesome. And so maybe there's times where we want to get bigger groups together, but sometimes the folks who are doing advanced stuff need to talk to the folks doing advanced stuff, right? Okay, so that's all I could tell you about this verb. And so I think I should be able to say, tushigéiyi. It's something I don't want to share, which is kadeich, shame on you. Share, give it to the people. But maybe it's just some delicious thing. I don't know.
Oh, you're teasing.
Ane, I have a very different grammatical question.
Okay.
In Harusnef Hayuchatongi, there's a list of adjectives,
Mhm.
both the adjectives that appear before the verb and the adjectives that appear after the verb. I'm trying to memorize them.
Oh, yeah.
And in the process, I noted that there's quite a number of the adjectives that appear before the verb end in ch'án or shán, which I think might be a variant of ch'án.
Mhm.
And I was wondering what's going on there, because it appears to be some form of suffix after the verb part of the adjective.
Oh, this. Yeah, so there's ch'án and ts'án. And this, we talked about this a little bit the other, was that us? Maybe was that last night? It was last night. There is this thing with a CH apostrophe and a TS apostrophe not being interchangeable, but sometimes being interchangeable. But here you have, so if you had dudley tau, that would mean it was stolen, right? You do have an L classifier in there, which is a little bit different. Dudley u ch'án. So both of those, the verb itself usually has a zero classifier. So you do have this thing which means it's easy to do that or it's tempting to do that. But I would usually say it's easy. Like dutli tau ch'án is like it can be easily stolen. Dutli u ch'án, it can be easily sold. And so probably a similar thing with kushlatits shán and then tushigéiyi shán. So those are also related things that turn. And so there's a number of different ways that things can turn into an adjective. Very commonly, you're going to see this suffix right here, katsukhu. So that U on the end is what we call the attributive suffix. And same with tushigéiyi. So they should all be low. Ts'án. So ts'án it's strange. Ts'án, strange thing, right? Like tushigéiyi for all those who partake in that type of thing. The strange tobacco. And so there's different ways that these work, and I don't know if anybody's done a lot of like deep dives into this to figure out why would it be one way and these other ways, And so a lot of them do derive from verbs. Kutla, kusakak, kuwach, kuwat, those all come from verbs. But for some reason, like those ones don't really need to change a whole lot, right? So you could say kuwach, shechau, short hair, right? And you could say kutla, gukha, a stout cup, right? So you could say those things. And then some of them are not from verbs at all. But yeah, so these ch'anates, ch'án, so nates is right in the middle, which comes from na, which means to oil something up or to lubricate something. Nate is for usually a human being, to gain weight. Die is to heat something up. Watch, wants, or was. So yeah, that's a big question. I'd probably have to do some deep digging to figure out what it is. But that is a pattern. Like so, I guess as you memorize these, you could say, okay, it's one of those types of things. Okay, it's one of those types of things, and sort of leave it in these types of things maybe for now.
There are a lot of them that have shift classifiers too.
Yeah, right. Kushle, yeah. Kushish. Okay. You okay?
I have a question.
Oh,
How do you know if you can do that to a verb? Have ch'án.
that's a really good question. Because the other one is déin, right? So you can also add déin if you look at your list of adverbs. There's a whole bunch of them that have déin on them. Kudzi-déin, kishka-déin, kedéin, dich-déin. And they're like There's one, déin. Anybody know what that one would be? Déin.
Like fireweed?
Déin. Déin.
Really without?
Usually, is it?
What about tushigéiyi?
It's not hard.
Easy.
Yeah, so tlidzi is hard, tushigéiyi is not hard, déin is easily. Right, and so like, I don't know, I guess we're gonna need someone to do some deep dives on this stuff, because I'm still, like, I guess the things that are keeping me busy is continuing to develop some curriculum sort of on this level of stuff. And so we do need some deep dives, and some of it is going to find, like, go find all the examples. Like, I don't know if you could put déin onto just any verb, right? Like, ch'án déin, I don't think sounds right to me. You can just say ch'ányi, right? But then the déin part, does it make sense because you're doing a verb that way, right? So yak a is good, déin is to do a verb well, right? Déin nata, sleep well, right? Déin ch'án, speak well, right? So with these, with that ch'án, if anybody wants a little project, put together a list of them. That'd be kind of fun. You're looking for the, but it's interesting too, because some of them are ch'án, some of them are shán, some of them are ch'án, and some of them are ts'án. And also maybe Jeff or Zeus have something in their work about it. That's a good question. That's a really good question. Okay. On to the practice part. Sheesh, this is great stuff. I'm glad you folks are bringing things that you're working on and thinking about. It's very helpful. I think we left off here. Let me rearrange my little things. You go there, you go there. I don't know if we did this one yet or not. Tells us everything we need to know.
We did do this one.
We did this one? Okay, sheesh. So we did Kawini. Did we do this one, people? We got dirty, right? Isn't that where we left off?
We did that one.
I don't think we did this one.
Not do that one.
Okay.
If we had, I wouldn't have called someone stinky.
Oh, yeah. So, oh, this is why, because we went from, oh, wait, no, Chen was further up. Okay. I can't bail you out. I don't know. Okay. This tells us everything we need to know. Somebody walk us through. Get us to the point where we should be able to predict all of these. What are all the things we need to see?
There's a little X up by the verb, by the two at the end of the verb, and that means the root doesn't change, so you just string it together.
Up, on, all the time. Always long and low.
And because it's happened, the classifier is I positive, so it's fit.
Yep. So we have ch'án. Tu has to, can't contract, so tushigéiyi. And it's a state verb, so yeah, that tells us it's going to be imperfective. The ga isn't going to affect anything right now. So we should have everything we need. How would I say, I am kind?
Tlein.
Tushigéiyi. You are kind.
ts'án.
Tushigéiyi. Singular, they are kind.
Tlein.
Tushigéiyi.
Tushigéiyi. Sheesh. We are kind.
tushigéiyi.
tushigéiyi. You all are kind.
Yi tushigéiyi.
Yi tushigéiyi. Yeah. Oh. They all, plural, are kind.
Has tushigéiyi.
As tushigéiyi. People are kind.
tushigéiyi.
One more time.
tushigéiyi.
Yeah, oh, tushigéiyi. Gonna cheese. Okay. Okay. Double mega bonus round. You all are kind to me. It's not in there. You just have to know.
tushigéiyi.
We're looking for yi tushigéiyi.
Would it have that sh in there? Because it's happening to.
The sh would be like kind to the self, but it would also require a subject. You can't really have the sh without a subject.
Would it be yi tushigéiyi?
So it would be yi tushigéiyi. So we're going to change this one just for now. I got to put something in front of it.
Achin.
That is it. Achin tushigéiyi. So you could say kun tushigéiyi. I'm kind to people. Cha'in can become kun. Achin can also become. There's a short version of this. I don't know how short. We just kick one letter out and a space.
ch'án.
Chán.
Chán. Okay. Good job in the bonus round.
Wait, what does chán tushigéiyi mean?
You all are kind. Chán tushigéiyi. Or chán yi tushigéiyi. Put it in the chat. Okay. Okay. Again, we have everything we need, but let's walk through it. Whichever direction you folks like to go in. I go left to right, but that's just because I teach this stuff left to right. But go where your brain goes. Well, okay, we're just trying to walk through everything we need first. Sorry.
Object.
It's an object, right? So we're doing object. So these will all have objects. We're changing objects until you see the subject pronoun. So there's the big key, the answer key. Sa, which is usually a voice, but is also a neck, the base of the neck. Because if you can cut the heads off of like chickens or something, there's a sa in that verb. Or to wring their necks. Whatever you do to them. What is
Zero classifier.
Zero classifier. Which then we should jump over to this. We're going to jump over.
It's an event.
So then what's it going to be for the right now? What mode? Any event verb when you're talking about right now will be in the perfective.
Okay.
It's always the way it's going to go, right? Ilsatin, chwasaku. So it's going to trigger something, right? And we'll see what that thing is.
Happened, didn't happen.
Yeah. So if we're cold, if someone's cold, it must have happened, right? That's just the way Tlingit logic works. Throw that thing plus I. This is going to be ya. And this is going to tell us the last thing we need.
The stem is always the same.
No, it doesn't have that little X. This is marked high, which means there's no low version. That really affects the negative future. But we're not doing that right now. But this tells us what this vowel is going to be. Perfective, closed, zero conjugation. This thing that says zero, short and high. The other thing is there is a bit of, I'll put this in here. So when we have these components, that the object thing, it doesn't matter for right now. But what we are going to have here is we're going to have you, and I got to make it, hold on, I got to make it gray. Follow my color scheme here. So these are the, and this is going to be ya. So the way that this works is when you have sa, you, ya, it must change. And this is something I think, okay, let's do this. Anybody know what it's going to be? I mean, we know, a lot of us know this verb, right? What's it going to sound like? These things put together. Sewa, right? Sewa. These three things give us sewa. So what do you think we get from here? Ewa, right? There are, I don't know if there's too many others. These might be the only two that do that thing, right? Where it goes, but you will get going to EW or EI, sorry. You'll get this. This is not unusual, right? It goes the other way too. So te to te, and then you can go to ta. Like that can happen. This is an interesting vowel. It goes back and forth. You're going to see it all the time. A to the EI, EI to the A. It's just something that happens. It happens regularly. It happens predictably, but it's important to sort of keep that in mind. I'll give you guys a little picture thing in there, I guess. Okay. I am cold. And remember, when a person's cold, you have to have that sa. I guess for Tlingit, that's where you get cold, is right there.
So hot sewa.
Yeah, way. Look at that teamwork. Chatsewa ut. Beautiful. Look at his hands coming together to make the verb. You were cold.
Forgot about the at.
We say what?
Sewa ut. They are cold.
Say what?
Sewa ut. Yeah, way.
Say what?
This verb is not, this one's not going to change a whole lot. It's already contracted. There's not a lot. And so this gives you a major clue. Like if you put the I on there and it doesn't change, I don't think anything will change it. We're cold. Y'all are cold.
Ye say what?
They all are cold.
Us say what?
Asewa. People are cold.
Who say what?
Asewa. Okay. Any questions about that one?
Can you remind me why we go from k to ku again?
Yeah, so it seems to me like basically if there's no similar verb that has k, then it's k. Like you say kuwati for weather. You could say kuwati for people, but I don't think anyone, I've seen it. Yeah, I know it's happened before, but most people would say kayati, just to be clear. I'm not talking about the weather. So I would say k, unless there's some similar verb that has k, then that kicks it to ka. Or if there's a k built on there. Ka kudzati. Because you can't say kudzati. That k. There are ones where you're going to have ka. You can have two of those, but you can't have two k.
But didn't before sometime we had ku?
Conchish.
Yeah, so you could have ku. Then this, you have sa, which means the ku isn't going to interact with that perfective marker. Ku plus perfective gets you ku. Underline K-O-O-W. Yeah.
Mm.
And when we get to, okay, hold on. Since we're there, also, so we're talking about k, and then we're talking about the perfective marker, right? So these things gets you tuwa, right? So that's what you end up with. And then you can also have, if that's zi, you would have udzi, right? So this is, again, following the string of how some of these things work. There are times when it gets a bit interesting. So if I change this again to zi, this has got to be red for my subject. Okay, so now I have I was living, or I was born, and I was an active part of the birthing process, I guess. So what is this one going to look like?
Kochzi.
Kuchzi, right? So this isn't too bad. You could say we were living there, like we were active in this process of the way we were living or whatever. It's right here.
Mm. Kudzi.
Nay,
Ah,
consonants don't usually go away. Shouldn't get-
correct. Well, I'm waiting for someone to tell me what it's going to be. Just put this right there.
Kutudzi.
Kutudzi, right? Now, I kind of went down this gahwuli because of this right here. This one will be different, right? So they have a bit of a predictable pattern, right? Kuchzi, kutudzi. We haven't really gotten into like the nuts and bolts of putting all these patterns together, which we will. But this one does something weird. And so you're going to have them all right here. If I just wrote them together, ku, yu, eh, right? So you can't have that. Like, Tlein is like, no, you can't say ch'án, you can't say ch'án. Wouldn't work.
Sounds cool.
But what you get,
Easy.
easy.
Mm.
Weird. Okay, sorry. Gach, wushi. Ooh, that doesn't like it. Gotta pick a different font now. Okay. But did we do slow? I feel like we did slow. Maybe not. Maybe I was just talking to people about it the other day. Chiyaq. We teach Lingi 5 nights a week. You can never remember what you taught people. So this tells us everything we need to know.
There's an object.
It's an object, right? So we're just changing the objects here so we can practice doing that. Did I hear that? Because we can jump over here, state verb. It's got to be imperfective. That's going to be because we're talking about it right now. So we should say something. Go ahead.
Chet, tlechiak.
Yep. This little
The
X.
little
This one.
Invariable stem.
Chiyaq, all the way down. Chiyaq, chiyaq, chiyaq. I'm slow.
Can you say it slower for effect?
You can say
Chiyaq.
chat, chiyaq. I talk slowly. You could put up in front of that. Okay. But hurry up now. Okay. You were slow.
Ishlichya.
Right? Again, this clues us in. Nothing needs to contract right here. We will only change the object pronoun. That's all we'll do. Nothing's going to get impacted. It's going to go chat, nothing. And it's going to go ha, yi, has, nothing, kh. There's your answer key, right? They are slow. Singular they.
Chitsiak.
Shitchiyak. Yeah, away. We are slow.
Halitchiak.
Hashitchiyak. All are slow. What does that mean?
Ye.
Yi, sorry. Yi shitchiyak. They all are slow.
Chaslichiyak.
Hashitchiyak. People are slow.
Ulichiak.
Hashitchiyak, right? Look at this one word only it's taking us like 45 seconds. So good at this.
Okay,
Uh,
why is the p for fourth person attached to the rest of the verb when I think I remember from previous instruction that only the second person singular is attached?
So yeah, attached. Whoops. So we have
Yeah.
kh.
K.
Those are the things that we write attached. Ha and yi
Mm.
and ka will all trigger contraction though. Good
But are
question.
not attached.
Yeah, they are not attached, but they will cause contract. But they won't, not in all the same ways too. So that's the reason why we write them separate, right? So, and you can usually hear it like ich should seen, ye should seen. There's a tiny pause, I think. But more importantly, the big revealer is being bad. Kesh chat ushke. Kesh ha ushke. Kesh ishke. That combines. Ishke. Kesh yi ushke. That doesn't combine. None of the others do. Kesh has ushke. Kesh ushke. But that means bad weather. Kesh ka ushke. And then, then we've got there. Good questions. Okay, it's cold. Keep it slow. Everything we need to know is right here. So we look. Object. Okay, we're still doing those. Oh, there's ka. That's got to stay there, right? There are situations where ka can just switch to a k. This one can contract. But it's kind of irregular, I think. There you've got, so then once we see zero group state, it's going to be ya. It's going to be imperfective.
Chat kadech.
Chat kadeich, yeah, kadeich and kayedeich. There are two ways to say this, and so you do have ka and ya, just in terms of how they run into each other.
Hune.
Ah.
Is this one sometimes interpreted as being shy as well? Because I've heard this one as shy before.
That's a really good question. We have sometimes a difficult time getting the word for shy out of speakers. Like we're asking some this summer, and we're getting a variety. We're like, I think somebody said this verb, but then there were some other speakers who were there that said, well, I don't think so. That means you're embarrassed, but it could mean like, because part of shyness, it sort of depends, because some people I think can just be like, I like being around people, and some people are just quiet, and then some people are kind of embarrassed, like you just see it. So if you said kadeir, I'd be like, they're embarrassed to be around people, is how I would interpret that if you're talking about them being shy. But the one that I remember people using when they did talk about, like, especially like a baby, some babies, especially like when they're real little, don't like to be around people. And they would say, so here you've got chat tushigéiyi. right? So again, this reveals some things to tlak ch'án. So this does tell me that it's probably not a state verb because it's using the perfective, right? So then maybe this is, I would guess, an event verb. But then maybe they need to sort of figure some things out with it, and we can also take a look. And then you can also see the object and the subject, right? So if you said, Mary chat tushigéiyi, Mary is bashful and shy towards me. So then how would you say, I am shy towards Mary?
Ak Mary Kulake.
Yeah, Mary kauchik.
Ah,
And we haven't done those ones yet, right?
no, but
Some of us, we might have done it like a while ago, but so this one has so this is always interesting to me. When is it an object and when is it a subject? Because for Shinget, like subject is like, that's the one who does it. So like you are doing shy to someone else is what it sounds like in terms of like the logic of the language. And then like usually like once we see it, we can again go back into the notes and we can go down to the underline K and it's not there because this is the end of the road. So unfortunately we don't have anything else on that.
Could it be cultural too? I mean, if you ever been around a group of people that live in a village and are Tlingit, there's rarely a rare shy person in that group. Even the people that you would recognize as shy in a Tlingit group altogether, all of a sudden open up, start talking, start laughing. It seems to be cultural that you're open like that.
Yeah, because a lot of it has to do with familiarity as well. Like, does everybody know each other? The situation, does the social thing call for certain types of behaviors? Because I know people who are real funny and goofy, but then if you get them in different situations, they're just real quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Can choose.
Have you heard elders use the word bashful?
Oh, that's a good question. So we also have, because we have this typed version of these notes. So we can do a search for bashful and we get a kaushika. So this also, and then in the notes, it shows us, oh, okay, we ran into this today. We're gonna get a little bit, not sidetracked. We're gonna just get on a different road. So how do you say, like, I was actually not saying this one correctly. But how do you say, command someone to try? Everybody know that one? How do you say try? Or I tried, in any form, the verb to try something. Ka'ak, right? So what I was saying was kana'ak, because I knew it was na conjugation. But with both these were with this aushake and now this one we're looking up. When we look this verb up, there's an irrealis built into it. And some verbs just have that. And it's one of those things, again, when you look at this theme, you just have to know what kinds of things to note. Because once you see that it's there, you're like, oh, that's there, okay. Kuna'ak. But there is kana'ak and kuna'ak. They are both in there. Because this probably falls into this category of this is how the language used to be, and it's starting to slide in a different direction. And it's up to us to figure out which kinds of things we want to sort of keep from sliding Every language changes, but some things that change might sort of be things that we might want to hold on to. So this is why in an imperfective, you would say kach wa'ak. That is not a perfective. But the perfective does gain like an additional kach wa'ak. This is getting into the weeds a little bit. But then if we look up, like, are either of these shy verbs in here? Qa. So we'll look for this underlined qa. I don't see it. We'll look for this underlined qi. Shy. So then this tells you it's a state verb with an irialis. So sometimes, like, we have all these tools, like all of these tools, they really help us to figure out what's going on. But then there's just these little variables we have to keep in mind. And so it's unusual for a state verb to have an irialis. And it's unusual for a state verb to use a subject. Because usually a state verb is saying, it is that way, which Tlingit likes to use object pronouns for. But this is one where you would have, and so yeah. But then I would think for and this one wants to stay high. So that means it will vary, but there won't be a low version. But if we went back to this other bashful verb, and this is sometimes how we have to do some of this reconstruction. You have an object and a subject and a ka and an irialis and qa. So it's probably a state verb, and you could probably take every single one of these and change qi to qa, and you got it. But so these are interesting sort of things in terms of like really cross-referencing all of these resources. And what we're trying to do in this class as well is like understand this stuff, continue to look it up, continue to do these drills, and these drills lead to thoughts, which lead to all these other things. But then we have to come back to, then sometimes you just got to drop all that stuff and just use the language. Just speak it, listen to it. Don't think about, because you're constructing a whole other way to sort of see the world, right? That's what, if you really can speak another language, you can see the world through multiple perspectives simultaneously. But that's going to give you a headache sometimes. And so, yeah, that was a really good question, led to these really good sort of things, which is some of them just have, and the ka and the u, that's usually, it's very commonly a combination. And what the irialis, just to come back to this little thing, it's a little U sound. It's not the perfective marker, it's different, but it often looks exactly the same. But it means that there's some disagreement with reality. That's really what it doesn't mean. It's not that way, but it will be in all futures, all negatives. And then some verbs is just built in there.
Did you just say you could change K to Ga?
Yeah, I think if you put Qa in there, it'd be the same. I'm guessing, this is again a prediction, but based on the ways I've studied Tlingit, when you look at those verbs being, because you see right here, they are shy of them, right? They became shy, or I guess that's right. But then when we go back over to here, we see akaushaqa. Well, I guess it does.
Oh.
It is a little, well, it's right there. So this aukshaqa and akaushaqa.
Before we break, can I ask you a personal question really quick? It's not too personal. It's kind of more about the language personal.
Okay.
So like Monday, I had what I wanted to say. It was all worked out, like some of the verbs I'd been looking at over the weekend, and had it all worked out in my head, had 3 different ways to say it and think it. But when it was my turn to speak, it just went poof. And I messed up one of the verbs, and I kind of messed up the order. I had a transition from one thing to the other, totally lost that. Was there a period when you were learning that it was like that? And if there was, how did you work to get over it?
Yeah, there was, and there still is sometimes. Like I'll be talking and I'll say something, and I'm like, oh, why did I say it that way? You know. So I guess I would say a couple. There were times when I would like really think about something, and then once I had to start doing it in front of people, like there'd be a moment of panic a little bit. And I like to say, you know it till you show it, right? Type of thing, because it's just something that tends to happen. But I think the more you put yourself into those situations, the more you're able to kind of get used to it. And part of it is getting used to like rolling with the swells when that does happen. Like, okay, every now and then there's a rogue wave, but I've hit rogue waves before, so I kind of know what to do when that happens. And so, but I do remember, like for me, that's where it comes back to use, because I think we need to do this stuff, the deconstruction, the drilling, and all of that. And it's a very artificial way to learn a language. But there's so many moving parts in Tlingit that I think you have to. It's a verb-driven language with lots of moving parts. Just very common sort of factors with Native American languages. Even though they're all totally different, they all have these similar structures, which means you can't just sort of, you got to have a different approach in some regards with some of the language learning. But then you have to be speaking it and listening to it, because that's the part where you can overanalyze the language sometimes, and where you think, okay, now I got to move this thing over here, and then this thing does that, and then this thing, and then it's sort of like if you're learning how to drive a car, sometimes you got to just sort of like put that thing in gear and just go, right? Because it's sort of like, I don't know, if you're teaching someone how to do something that you know how to do really well, at some point you're like, you just go do the thing, and then you start to figure it out, right? And so I do think some of the defining moments for me was as I was gaining an ability, people were asking me to speak publicly. And then when I was speaking publicly, I'd look out and I'd see Walter Soboleff and Nora Dowenhauer and these giants of the language. And so then I would, I guess one moment that I'm sure I talked to you folks about it before. So I'll share this, then we'll come back and we'll solve our puzzles and we'll wrap up. There was the dedication for the Shitkakoan Nakihiti. I think it was the 5-year anniversary of it, which was probably quite a while ago. And Kajakti, Walter Soboleff, was giving this amazing speech. His Tlingit was amazing, his English was amazing, his everything was amazing. And I'm just like tuned in, listening, and then someone comes up and says, you're gonna be one of the people that responds. It's like, oh. So then my brain's like, I'm gonna say this thing, and then I'll say that thing, and then I'll say this thing, and so I assembled it. I assembled the whole speech, right? And then I stood up there, and there was like a whole bunch of people, and even in it was going back probably 15 years ago, 20. It must have been 20, at least. And lots of speakers in that room. And then I look down, there's this row of clan leaders with all their stuff on, and there's Walter, like the biggest of them all, with his hat and his nachein. I couldn't think of a single thing. So I went to my fallback. And that's how I'd start with a lot of things. And then there was Herman Davis all those years ago. He yelled out, Yekwati! Just yelled it out, bellowed it out. And I was fine. And then I just talked. And so you do reach a point, if you keep doing the talking part, where after a while you'll be like, hey, I put all those things together. It's like when you learn how to do like a layup in basketball or something. Like you gotta step, and then you gotta move, and then and then at some point you do all the parts, and you're like, whoa, I did the parts. And so I think it does come. And for everybody, it's going to be in different stages. But I think for me, it was always learning when to turn off the analysis part, because sometimes you just go too far with it. You overthink. I don't know.
Geesh.
Sheesh for asking. Okay, one last thing. And there's always next week. So, and nobody, and I guess just don't panic, right? Everybody has their path. Everybody has their ways. Different things are going to go at different levels. And if you analyze yourself, you're quite likely doing it in English. So believe in yourself, keep going, support each other. And as someone who's listening, it was a hard lesson for me to learn. It's like, know when to shut up and just listen. And I was like, well, actually, if you put the realities right, you know. Okay. That's the hardest one. Any parts that we recognize?
Nakru is
Not.
octopus.
Yep.
That's the octopus cane.
Yeah, so
Or
there's
what's
your octopus cane, tentacle cane. Tentacle and finger are the same.
Is that dasek? Is that reach out?
There is a reach out, but that's not. Oh, that should be that. Oops. Oops. Let me double check. Yeah, okay. That's a mistake. It should be like this, dasek. And you would often hear this as dasek. We'll pull this one out. And you'll often see it like this as well. Dasek. Anybody know dasek? Trade. It's an interesting word. It's not a verb. Usually you have to say, and you can have like whoosh to say, and we traded together. Then you're gonna have a handling verb after, which could be I could say whoosh to say, sit, trade seats wherever you're sitting. Yeah, and so it can work like that. Whoosh to say, trade it. So, but then it's Raven, so he's always got to be so complicated. So you do have clash ade verbi yeah, like that's a pattern, and you have a complicated thing here, which is to handle a stick-like object.
So you couldn't trade me that octopus tentacle stick, could you?
Yeah, so yeah, if you take the ge out, this means you can't trade me. But if you put it in, so if you take those, if you take those clash ade verbi yeah, if you put ge right after clash, you're saying, is there no way? So clash, let's see, clash ge ade. How'd you say? Clash ge ade untitled. Is there no way you could sleep? And when kids just keep getting out of bed. Okay. Now, these are complicated. These are all very complicated. These are all-star things. And some of them were things that I've been asking for a long time. And
these are very, and what you said, don't get distracted. But of course, as soon as you said that, I didn't hear the not. Like, where are they?
Yeah, it's like putting a hamburger down in front of a dog. Eat that hamburger. Eat it later, okay? And I'll go in the next room. Okay. So this one is no one gets left out. We will talk about how this one works, but there's a ga, there's the conjugation prefix, and there's the arealis. Ch'aan unatiqa. Uchke utiqa. And we were figuring out ikuniqa, so you don't get sick. And the mechanics of it is so it doesn't happen. So there's usually some verb and then some other one, tying them together with this. It's a really unusual form, mode, but I think it is pretty useful. So it doesn't happen.
Something about your shirt being in the house.
Or your house's shirt.
Shirt.
Ah!
It's all very good. What is the déin part? Anybody know?
That is a good question. Yin is like in, around, or something.
Yeah, so there's a couple of these really useful, but also not used all the time, directional things. And déin and ch'án are opposites. Déin means to face something. Ch'án means to face away from something. And those of you, if you're working with young kids, you also got to know this one. Wish to cut in itishi. Your shoes are on the wrong feet. Facing away from each other. Now, Elder Shikshani gave me that one. She really laughed when she said it. So now we've got your shirt facing is home. There's a logic puzzle here, just in terms of how Tlingit thinks of things.
Your shirt's inside out?
It took me years to get that one from anybody. I'd all just say backwards. I'd all say backwards. Kakatlat, Florence Shakely. K awachek dusha. And when I went to the elders,
He snorted it out through his nose.
snorted it into their nose.
Oh, into his nose. Okay.
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 I can't remember, okay, because I was thinking of sneezing powder because there's a medicine, sneezing powder. Of course, when I went to the elders, I was like, okay, so I'm asking for this phrase for a friend. It's for a friend. Hey, here's our key to go home. Yeshni tasak.
I looked at sock as to say or be called, but the da part was impenetrable. And is self-reflexive.
Yes.
Call yourself.
We usually say like yechat dua.
Right.
And we do have right here a red thing, and we have right here a blue thing. So that means this is also a blue thing.
Oh, does it mean purple?
So here we'll go yay. Oh, this is a green thing. This is a gray thing.
Ooh. And the E.
This is a red thing. And a purple.
You're being called?
We're getting there.
Is mom calling us to dinner?
Yourself?
Yes. So not what you could say wasa. Well, wasashni desag. What the na in this case is triggering something. We have na, but we don't have anything else. So sometimes we get just the conjugation prefix. Why would we get that?
It's a command.
It's a command. Introduce yourself.
Oh. What's that da doing in there?
Well, once you have SH, it's going to trigger the D.
Okay.
Because you're doing it to yourself. So you're literally saying, call out to yourself. Kind of. But also, you can't always unpack every individual piece. Because then you put it back together and you're like, well, this is what this means. Mm-hmm.
What the color coding, it's different a little bit from the posters you have. Do you have a new color code.
Oh, I got a new. I got the whole fall color series. I'm introducing this whole fall color. Everything's in style.
Yeah, the fashionable professor.
Right. That's right. This is it. This is the permanent new color scheme for everything, for the components.
Intro
yeah,
for
cool.
next time. Yeah.
This comes from watching folks in Mohawk, watching folks in other Oneida and Seneca. I think they were doing some stuff like this. And then we're in New York City, me and Joel Isaac, and we're talking, and he teaches déin. And he said, I'm going to do this. I said, I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. And so the idea here is to start using these so that you'll start going back to these boxes and say, okay, it's that box, it's that box. And then the order of these boxes and the ways they smush together. That's the whole puzzle. I mean, then there's a whole bunch of variables, like we'll always see those. Like, okay, yeah, there's these complications, but this I think will make it a lot more straightforward. It's my hope.
Has other people adopted it? I mean, because I was trying to figure out how to do it with the other stuff you got. It's really cool to have a legend now. But
it's pretty new. Like I sort of started this. I probably started a year ago by making a board game that a bunch of people bought. And like, what do I do? It's like, I don't know, but we will get there together. And so,
well, we're waiting for the next version of the board game.
yeah. And so there is,
Or not.
I'd like to say something about orthography. I think it is good as students to be comfortable with the fact that there are still scholars who like XH instead of X underline. So as a consumer, as a reader, I think you just have to be ecumenical about it.
okay.
Kayla.
Sheesh.
Renee, I asked Kingisti one time how to say introduce yourself, and he said, and I like it, but he said, ha'in kananika dusawa.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, easier to hang on to than this one, eh?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying this is how we should say it.
No, it's all good. And the other thing I wanted to ask you was about déin, where I've always seen it déin with a A.
Oh, interesting.
And when I see D, I think down, eh? And I'm thinking, what's that N doing on the end? But anyways, I'll just probably either one. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, maybe it is déin. Sheesh.
Is it related to déin de tan, like face down?
Well, yeah, yin de tan is, so that's usually face down. And so that one, I'd probably have to take a look at a little bit. Good questions. Good questions. Okay. Okay. I'll find it another day. Chakut Gao. Good. Yeah, it might be one of those ones where there's two ways to write it or say it. Gunachishuhan Wukecha. So lateral kindness on Monday. If you can, go find some Tlingit and listen to it. Oh, maybe we should do. You guys want something common to listen to? Let's stick with Kashkawu because it was his birthday. So it's called. Let me find it. Tak Deshitan Haskras. So it's a good story, and it's one that I'm working on now. But it is 32 minutes. So between now and Wednesday. But try to give yourself a nice. Don't do like, let me do a couple minutes and I'll go. Give yourself a good 30-minute chunk where you could just sit and listen to him. Because that's the other thing, like when you learn all this stuff, you're like, I like this thing, then that thing. Then when you listen to a speaker, you're like, whoa, they just did that thing, right? You'll find all kinds of situations.
So I keep one more questioning, but the Think It Elders that you put together in the playlists on your site, was there any rhyme or reason to that? And given what you just said, kind of an idea there to kind of maybe find a pattern that you can work with into a class.
It was just the order I recorded them.
Okay.
Which story do you want us to listen to? 32 minutes?
It's Ta'a Kadeshitan Haswutlagas by Cyril George. That's the mosquito in the. It's a Deshitan and Duckloidy migration story.
Okay.
It's amazing. I don't have it all written out yet though, so this will give us some good things to focus on. And if there's particular, and as far as like how we'll engage with it, we do have the super class Monday. We'll come back Wednesday. We'll start talking about it. We'll come back to more drilling stuff. And then maybe the following Monday, we'll just sit and listen to it and then talk about it in Tlingit. Well, we'll see how it goes. Because also, I think on Wednesday of next week, I'm going to pick 2 people to lead us through the dialogue activity on Monday. Maybe 2, 4. You go, Juan, Pilchish.
Pilchish. Ts'yéiyi, Kwasati.
Yewushkach
Yagen.
Ganashish.
Cheers.